The main animation for the intro is finally finished. I do want to add a full background to it, but I need a break from it. It's been over 100 hours of work so far, and it's stopping me making other video elements. This is the first in a series of videos I want to produce, where I put two similar watches head to head to decide which watch wins. We'll feature several categories for comparison, announce a winner for each round, and reach an overall conclusion at the end. For the first episode in this series, we're going to look at two 70s inspired sports watches with integrated bracelets. The 12 from Christopher Ward and the PRX from Tissot. In particular, we're looking at the stainless steel automatic 40mm versions of each watch in terms of the footage you'll see, with the glacier blue of the 12 going up against the blue waffle dial of the PRX. Obviously these prices aren't necessarily going to age well with the video, but I want to try and be as comprehensive as possible. While I'm focusing on two models in particular in this video, when considering price, we'll look across the entire range. Not only that, but I'm going to look for the best possible deals available and what prices are looking like on the second-hand market. I'll just note here that I'm going to deal with these prices in Great British pounds. I know YouTube favours dollars in videos, but I'm just going to stick with what I know. When it comes to Christopher Ward, you only really have two options: buying direct from the company website or going into the second-hand market. When buying from ChristopherWard.com, the 12 range starts at £850 for any of the 40mm or smaller 36mm models on a bespoke rubber strap. The model that I'm featuring today, and any other colour variant in either size on a steel bracelet, come in at £1,050. While the 36mm model is smaller all round, it is worth noting that it does not come with a date complication. The titanium models are only available in 40mm and come in at £1,225 on a rubber strap or £1,595 on a titanium bracelet. At the top end of the range are the models which come with an 18 carat rose gold bezel. These are only available in 36mm and come in at £2,195 on a steel bracelet or £1,995 on a rubber strap for either of the halo dials or the Alta Gold model. As far as eBay goes, I'm not going to speculate on auctions as there's just too much variability there to give an accurate picture. Looking at buy it now prices, it's possible to save £200 on recommended retail price on a second-hand model and around £50 on a new model on a bracelet. Unless it's the exact model you want, I don't think that £50 makes much sense when you can shop straight from the company and be selective. The prices remain high for the 12 because supply is not always available. There are waiting lists for specific models. The PRX models start and end at lower price ranges than the 12, but it is worth noting that all of the cheaper models are quartz and not automatic. It's also available from a much wider range of retail outlets. We'll start by looking at the RRP on TissotWatches.com. The range on offer is more extensive and starts at £315 for a 40mm quartz model on a leather strap. The digital dial models come in at £330. I have to be honest though, the politest thing I can say about these is they're aesthetically challenged, even if they do offer additional functionality. At £335, you can have your choice of 40 or 35mm models on either steel or rubber bracelets in a wide variety of sunburst dial colours. Slightly above this sits the gold-plated range, again in digital or quartz in both 35 and 40mm from £415 to £425. The automatic range starts with two 40mm models on a leather strap at £610, but most models are £640 again in either size and on either a rubber strap or a steel bracelet. The more premium models start with rose gold bezels, gold-plated designs and a mother of pearl dial. At the top end of the range are 42mm chronographs, which are too bulky for my taste, and models with precious metal bezels and diamonds on the dial. The most expensive model caps out at £1,820, but it is worth noting at the top end of the range, none of these watches feature the waffle dial. Shopping elsewhere, it's possible to pick up models for closer to the £200 mark, especially if you can get extra discount codes online. It's harder to find discounts on the automatic models, but I bought mine with a 20% off at the official Tissot website, so it just takes some patience and hunting around. When it comes to second hand, there aren't really many savings to be made. At the time of making the video, the price gap between a second-hand model or a brand new one on eBay was only £25 and would be even less if shopping around or bidding via auction. There is a bigger gap with the automatics though. It's possible to save at least £100 by shopping in the second-hand market there. Quite a clear victory for the PRX here. It is quite simply a cheaper watch to purchase and has a larger range and a quartz option if you really want to save on your purchase. There is, however, a distinction between price and value. Just because one watch is cheaper than another doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually better value for money. I'm combining the concept of value with the specifications for the watches, in particular the movements, so we can get a better idea of what you're actually getting for the purchase price. The Swatch Group is a much bigger beast than Christopher Ward, and so all of their movements are in-house. They've developed innovative new movements across their brands recently, with the System 51 in various Swatch models and the Powermatic 80 that features in the PRX. The Powermatic sacrifices beat rate in exchange for power reserve. While certainly an interesting innovation, if you wear the watch every day, all you're actually getting is a slightly less smooth sweep on the second hand. Where it comes into its own is if the PRX is in rotation with other watches in your collection and sees wear 2 to 3 days a week. It's also enough power reserve to keep itself going over the weekend and thereby avoiding the need to set the time every Monday morning. As an in-house movement, it qualifies for Swiss made on the dial. In contrast, the 12 features a 38-hour power reserve, courtesy of an SW201 movement from Sellita. It has a 4 Hz frequency rather than the 3 Hz of the Powermatic, so the sweep of the second hand is smoother, and it also comes with an anti-shock system to keep time accurate if the watch is dropped or knocked. Both watches feature exhibition casebacks, so you can see each movement. And while you're not getting Langer hand finishing with either, I definitely think the Sellita is more impressively finished. The 12 also comes with high-grade Super Luminova and performs very well in the dark. While the PRX is no slouch here either, it's worth noting that the PRX range does feature a full lume dial version. As standard, both watches feature stainless steel constructions, and you can splurge on precious metal bezels if you're so inclined. I think having a titanium model in the range really gives the 12 an edge though in terms of the materials available. Clearly, this round is a close run contest, which largely depends on your use case scenario. If you want longevity, the PRX has it. If you want a smoother movement, the 12 wins. You could go full lume with the PRX or titanium with the 12. We'll call this round a tie. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and so you might not agree with my preferences here. That's absolutely fine. I'll give my opinion, but I do think there are 1 or 2 areas of aesthetics that we might all agree on. We'll start with the PRX and its waffle dial. It's very well executed and particularly pleasing in the way that it catches light and shadow across its surfaces. Its subtle sunburst effect is prominent when you step outside on a clear day, and while definitely pleasing, it isn't exactly original. An easy interpretation would be that it's taking inspiration from the AP Royal Oak's famous dial. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are very few original 70s sports watches. Most are at the very least nodding the hat towards Gerald Genta designs. It's worth taking into account that Tissot are a very old brand. Founded in 1853, they have their own extensive back catalogue, including the Sea Star from 1978 that the PRX is based on. So I'd go as far as saying that the PRX is also unlikely to be their first waffle dial. So there are at least some claims on originality here, even if the 1978 design itself is derivative of other earlier integrated sports watches. The modern PRX has made improvements in all areas, apart from weight. It has a mixture of polished and brushed surfaces that catch the light as you move. If you want Genta styling on a budget, it's very hard to do better than a PRX. By comparison, Christopher Ward is a fledgling company, having been founded 20 years ago in 2004. There are clearly a wide range of inspirations going on with the 12, and commenters on previous videos have pointed out that the Chapek Antarctique is a very obvious point of comparison. While I think that's entirely fair and the similarities are there for all to see, I actually think the dial on the 12 is more impressive. Its lattice work of pyramids makes perfect sense for the new branding of the company, interweaving the St George's Cross of England with the negative space of the Schweizer Fahne of Switzerland. Apologies for the no doubt terrible pronunciation there. The originality of the dial design, but also the depth of the dial, gives the 12 a clear win over the PRX here in my opinion. As for the rest of the watch, the tapering on the bracelet is better, the finishing is better, the design itself is more intricate in terms of the bezel, and the crown guards give a real sense of presence on wrist. They're there to protect the signed screw down crown, a feature that the PRX does not boast, even though both models do share the same 100 meters of water resistance. Nice as the PRX is, it can't really compete with the 12 in the looks department for me. Tissot wins hands down on history, but not when it comes to this specific design. In terms of colour, both brands offer a wide selection. I think what gives the 12 the upper hand here are two models in particular. The Frosted Lichen, which I think is a slight improvement over the mint version of the PRX, though I have to say I bought my PRX before the mint was released. The model I think really pushes the 12 over line here is the gradient dial of the Nebula Purple, which is the boldest option in both lineups. While it doesn't really matter once you've bought the watch, one area of aesthetics that the Tissot wins hands down is the branding and advertising. That late 70s vibe really suits the watch perfectly. While I love the classy way the 12 is advertised online and through the in-house magazine, they can't compete with the financial backing of the Swatch Group. Your average watch shopper is far more likely to have heard of the PRX than the 12 as a result. The 12 wins, by small margins, but in every area of aesthetics, except maybe advertising. In terms of width, there's nothing really to separate the two watches, both coming in at 40mm, but that's where the similarities end. The PRX is advertised at 10.9mm thick, nearly an entire millimetre thicker than the 12, which is advertised at 9.95. You might not immediately think that a single millimetre would make a huge difference, and I don't think it would, but for another detail in the design. The lug-to-lug of the 12 is advertised at 44.5mm, with the PRX coming in slightly smaller at 44. The issue is with the end links of the PRX. They have no flexibility in them at all, so the actual lug-to-lug is bigger, making larger gaps between the wrist and watch at the lugs. That, in combination with the added thickness of the watch, leaves the PRX wearing a little bit like a flying saucer on wrist. The exhibition caseback on the 12 features its trademark 12-sided bezel. This breaks up the way it sits slightly, and all of those features in combination mean the 12 wears much flusher than the PRX. One area where the PRX is ahead is the weight department. It weighs in at 138 grams compared to the 12 at 160, both measured with the bracelet and all provided links. The 12 does have a counter to that though, with its titanium version coming in at 136 grams. The final point of consideration I'd raise here in terms of the dimensions is the tapering of the bracelet. The PRX is more angular, but the taper on the 12 is more aggressive and more comfortable to wear as a result. This should have been a lot closer than it is. The PRX is scuppered by its end links. The 12 wins. For the sake of transparency, I will make it clear that I've owned the PRX since the winter of 2021 and the 12 from the summer of 2023. When it comes to comfort, both watches have the same problem, a butterfly clasp. While aesthetically very pleasing, it doesn't leave any room for micro adjustment, so the fit you'll get from each watch is dependent on your own wrist size and how many links or micro links you need to remove. With both watches, even if you get a great fit, as your wrist swells during the day, you'll probably experience having a clasp imprint pressed into your skin when you take the watch off. For me, I was able to get a much more comfortable fit with the 12, but that doesn't necessarily give it the round by default, as that wouldn't be the case for everyone. While the PRX isn't uncomfortable for me to wear, I have the choice of either a snug or loose fit, where snug is constantly pressing into my wrist and loose leaves the watch constantly out of position. I've mentioned in previous videos that wear time is a key indicator for how much I actually like a watch. If you're only wearing one watch at a time, whatever you choose to wear the most is clearly, even if on a subconscious level, an indicator of preference. With that in mind, there is a clear winner here. The PRX saw semi-regular wear time throughout 2022 and at the start of 2023 for me. However, since purchasing the 12, not only has it been my most worn watch out of anything in my collection, the PRX has barely got a look in and only makes rare appearances where I'm wearing a colour matching shirt to work. I also mentioned I have a box system with 3 tiers of boxes and with my most worn or treasured watches in the top box. The PRX owns the dubious accolade of being the first watch to be relegated down a tier as I've run out of space in the top box. As far as the 12 goes, it's been my most worn watch since I purchased it, not just between these two, but from my entire collection. And while I'm now into the habit of trying to split my wear time around a little bit more to make videos, it's definitely still my go-to, especially for work and smart occasions. Despite owning the PRX for a lot longer, the 12 has already seen considerably more wear time. The 12 wins. It's more comfortable and has seen considerably more wear time. It's time to decide our overall winner for this inaugural episode of Which Watch Wins. Before we do, I'd just like to say as a reminder that I've purchased and enjoyed both of these watches myself. And so while you might think there's a little bias here, given that I've previously declared Christopher Ward as my favourite watch brand, do bear in mind I was excited about buying both of these watches with my own money, and I've tried to be as objective as possible with this video. In the end, it's a close decision, with individual rounds going each way, and of course personal preferences and finances are always going to be a consideration when buying a watch, but I'm pleased to announce the overall winner is the 12. Let me know what you think of the video format and anything you'd like to see or change. This is a bit of a change in itself for me, and a longer video that took a lot more time to produce, so I'd really like to know what you think. Moving forwards, I'm going to look at running 3 main forms of videos. Videos around my personal collection, keep or sell videos on new purchases, and which watch win videos like this one. If you've enjoyed this, please consider watching some of my other content, liking and subscribing. Thank you for your time.